Meeting called to order.
This is the regular meeting of the Land Use Board of the Township of Greenwich. Adequate notice of this meeting location change to the Greenwich Elementary School, 101 Wyndham Farm Boulevard, Stewartsville, New Jersey, 08886, has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, and in that a notice was published in the Express Times and Star Ledger newspapers. Notice was posted on the municipal bulletin board in the Township Administration Building in Greenwich Township, New Jersey, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk.
All right, roll call.
Mark Scuderi,
Here.
Mr. Beam,
Here.
Mr. Chichillo,
Here.
Mr. Baylor,
Here.
Ms. Cullen. Here. Mr. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Fama,
Yes.
Mr. Blunt,
Here.
Ms. Sherlaw. Here. Mr. Bradlaugh,
Here.
Ms. Parker. Here. Mr. Graham,
Here.
Mr. Coulter John.
Here. All right, flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next order of business, adoption of resolutions. We have none, so we will move on right to the public hearing. Land Use Board number 2024-04, applicant is the Tinsley Greenwich Township NJ LLC.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Barron, representative on Barron, counsel to the applicant, the Tinsley Greenwich Township NJ LLC. This matter is from the March 13th application for preliminary and final major site plan and bulk variance approval to develop a light industrial building on property located at 717-173. You'll recall that last year we presented the testimony of our site civil engineer, Jonathan Strong from Stonefield. Since that hearing, we have talk a little slower, put the microphone a little closer. You got it. At our last hearing, we presented the testimony of our site civil engineer, Jonathan Strong from Stonefield Engineering. But since that hearing, we have made some substantial revisions to the site plan to further reduce the magnitude of development, further address the comments we received from the board and its professionals. I will let the professionals testify in detail about the changes, but just in general, I'd like to just mention a couple of the changes that we will discuss. Starting with the eliminating, because before you do that, so housekeeping. So at the last hearing session, I had noted that the board has a 21-day submission rule. The board rule is board rule 2:1-3. And I said the board can waive it if there's a request for the waiver. And I asked you, did you want the board to waive it? You said, we'll see. You never asked the board to waive it. So your submission didn't come in until March 31, which is within 10 days under the municipal land use law. But I spoke with the board chair, and that can't happen again. Any further revisions, they have to be submitted 21 days before. What that has resulted in is our two board professionals, the planner and the engineer, people in the public think they're not doing their job, their reviews get out too late. Their reviews actually get out incredibly quickly from when the plans are filed. So I just want to put that on the record that the reason that we didn't fall off in the hearing tonight was we went through all the trouble to get the school, and get this room, and we figured it would be mass scheduling if we pulled the hearing off because of that. And so I just want to personally thank the planner and the engineer for going to that and getting the reports out as quickly as they did. But this can't happen anymore. Yeah, I understand. I'd like to thank them as well, Mr. Good and Ms. Lely. I appreciate that. You did get them out very quickly. We are appreciative. 21-day deadline, 7 days after the last hearing, and as I'm going to go through, there were substantial changes, and Mr. Good, who's an engineer, could probably attest to the fact that it would be impossible to have done that within a 7-day time frame. So, but for now on, we
then you ask for a hearing date further down the road.
I understand that the conclusion of this hearing, we are going to continue to another hearing, which is most likely to be the case. I'll ask at that point in time that any plan revisions, maybe we would ask for a waiver, and we'll see on what we think maybe needs to get changed, but again, it's next meeting.
But if a waiver is not requested, 21-day rules are strictly enforced.
Understood. So again, the changes that we did make from the last hearing to tonight, for starters, we eliminated the existing two-story dwelling at the front of the property. We got confirmation that can be removed, and we're going to put that as part of our application that it will be removed. We also reduced the amount of parking on site. We substantially increased the number of trees and planting on site to over 1,600 trees that are going to be planted. We reduced the size of the truck courtyard. We reduced the impervious coverage by an additional 2.21 acres, in addition to what was already left impervious. And we also reduced the size of the proposed retaining walls. There's other changes, and I'll let our professionals discuss those in more detail. But as a result of these changes, we also eliminated several variances that were being requested as part of our initial application, and we reduced the intensity of some other variances. So this evening, I would like to recall our civil engineer, Mr. Strong, to discuss those changes, and then present our next witness report if we have time to get traffic engineer.
For planning purposes and to let the public know, so you're gonna call your engineer back and testify about the plan changes. If you recall, at the end of the last hearing session, the attorney for the neighboring municipality objector finished his cross-examination with the chairman, and after your engineer finishes his testimony tonight, we're gonna let him, and by him, I mean Ted Carroll, cross-examine any new information that your engineer testified about, and then we're gonna go with the original plan to let Mr. Kaplan, who represents the Skyline Preservation Alliance, do his cross-examination. And then the chairman thinks the best thing to do after that is let the public ask their question. This is questions only, no comments. And then the board, if there's any questions that the board members still have left, they can ask questions at that point. The board professionals have a green light to interrupt at any time they want to ask any questions.
Sounds good, thank you. Just before I call my first witness, I'd like to just confirm the receipt of the two review memos by Mr. Good from Fidelity Consulting Engineers, which was dated April 8th, 2025. And also the KMA memo from Sleary dated March 1st and revised April 7th, 2025. And those are the two review memos that we've received since last year. At this time, I would like to recall Mr. Strong, our civil engineer.
You were there under oath, correct?
Yes, I understand.
And you guys are gonna share that microphone? We have one microphone in the center, the chair, and the board secretary, and then we have one roving microphone.
Understood. Before I get started, I do have two easels here. I just have one exhibit that I want to present, which is the updated colorized version of the site plan that's submitted. If you just let me know when to set up the easels, I'll be more than happy.
I'm thinking the best place to have that exhibit, unless you have to point to it, because the board has all the plans in front of them.
I also have a nice copy as well. So,
Okay, if you feel you have to point to them, the best location is where you have the easel, but maybe, back it up a little, even though it's further away from the board, it must be closer to the public. Like, right behind the table. And the next exhibit will be exhibit 83.
so I will mark this exhibit A3. This is the site plan rendering P101 dated April 9th, 2025. And what this is similar to the last site rendering. It is a colorized version 2D of the site plan that was previously submitted.
Purposes of the record for our report stenographer, we're gonna call A3 the color rendered site plan. Dated April 9, 2025.
So while those outside exhibits are being handed out, our attorney stole a little bit of my thunder, but just to go through the site layout, as it was resubmitted. What the applicant did is hearing the feedback from the board, and some of the public about the initial application. They did go back, with the project team, design team, and we reevaluated the site. We made some changes and revisions to the site layout that were submitted, 10 days prior, and is being presented before you here tonight. So, going through those changes, the first change we want to draw attention to is the proposed removal of the existing two-story dwelling and associated site improvements, driveway, parking areas, accessory structures around that two-story dwelling that's located in the front yard today. All of those areas of improvement, metal area will be demolished and it will be restored to a native meadow condition. What that means is that approximately half an acre of area within the frontage buffer is going to be revegetated. We're going to have a native seed mix, there'll be a mix of trees, shade trees, and evergreen trees as well to further supplement that frontage buffer. The extent of off-street parking throughout the site has been reduced. The total number of parking spaces is now 335, down from 372 previously. It's a removal of about 59 parking spaces. The majority of that parking was eliminated from the front of the building. It's also relocated portions of it to the side and rear of the building as well. The number of required parking spaces per code, yeah, and is still compliant. The new requirement is now 335 parking spaces required, or 335 proposed. The reason for that is that the applicant has installed more EV parking spaces on site to claim that EV parking credit of 2 spaces per 1 EV stall. What I'm going to refer to as the truck courtyard, so this is the rear of the building where you have loading docks and trailer spaces. That area has been reduced in scale as well. The total number of loading docks for the building is now 32, which is down from 54 previously. Additionally, the number of trailer stalls is now 74, down from 138 previously proposed. And really what that is, it's a reduction of loading docks of about 40% from what was previously proposed. And trailer spaces were reduction of approximately 46%.
40, how many?
46% for the trailer stalls, 40% for the loading docks. Additionally, as part of these revisions, you can imagine the reduction in parking spaces, loading docks, trailer spaces, the impervious coverage for the site that's also gone down as well. We have reduced impervious coverage down to 30.6%, where previously it was 35.7%. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, not hearing the numbers.
Sure. The impervious coverage is now proposed at 30.6%, previously 35.7%.
Thank you.
This is a reduction of about 2.21 acres, and it should be noted that the application is now approximately 6.25 acres under the allowable impervious in the zone. As mentioned by our architect, as part of the, or I should say, our attorney, as part of the reduction in the scale of the improvements, we've taken that area and added more landscape and more buffering to the site. So the applicant is proposing now a total of approximately 1,600 trees as part of landscape design. It's a pretty significant increase of about 1,000 trees from what was previously proposed. The majority of those trees are planted in the frontage buffer of the site or in the area located between what I'll refer to as the circulation loop of the building and the first parking lot. So we spent some time at the last hearing going through some of the zoning relief for this application. I did get a chance to go through the board planner and the board engineer's review letters. And similar to last time, there's a bit of a discrepancy between our zoning analysis, board engineer's analysis, and the board planner's analysis. But I just want to take the time to kind of go through that zoning relief overall, and make sure that everyone is on the same page of what is being proposed. So with that being said, I can go through this list, certainly if you stop me. There were 6 items here that I noted as differences between our analysis and the board's professionals. We're gonna go through that in more detail.
What page are you on?
It's not a review letter, I have a summary of this here, but both the board planner and the board engineer have a summary of zoning review in their review letters. That I'm going to refer.
Okay, but do you have numbers you're gonna follow, or?
I'm gonna refer to them by the zoning parameter, zoning section here, if that helps as well.
So on page 21 of Bryce Good's April 8th memo, he has a summary of variance with potential variance, he lists 15. And then in Kendra Levy's April 7th report, her report goes through all different variances, so whose report are you following?
Basically, I created a here, I compile our zoning analysis and the professionals together. And I noted that there are 6 differences, and then I was just gonna state the other variances that everyone agrees upon.
Okay, is there anything, any of the variances in either of their memos that you disagree with, and you think, no, you don't need a variance? That's a yes or no,
Yes,
okay, so you're gonna tell us which ones. And then is there anything that you think they missed where a variance is required?
no,
Okay, so when you go through and tell us which variances they think either are or may be required, you disagree, tell us which report and which number in the report.
okay, to make it easier, we're gonna simply state our all actually in Tonelli's letter. The only point of clarification I was gonna say was in the planning letter, your board planner correctly stated, and I apologize if I misinterpreted at the last hearing, regarding the requirement for sidewalks within the landscape islands of the parking lot. I believe it was discussed, and as I understand it, the board planner clarified in the review letter that while she does not believe the layout of the parking lot would be conducive to adding those sidewalks, based on the code strictly speaking, we would still see that variance. Is that correct, Ms. Levy?
Yeah,
Yes, that's correct.
can you tell us what? Talking about?
Sure. That is page 4, item 6.
Thank you. So now you're gonna direct analyzation to Bryce Good report, I assume starting on page 21.
Correct, yes. The, first item, I guess this is twofold. This, I just wanted to clarify again, but I feel like we spent some time. Expounding on, again, to confirm the applicant is proposing light industrial use as permitted in the zone. They're not seeking a D1 variance. I know that is noted in Mr. Good's letter, simply wanted to state that again. So the first item I want to talk about, page 21, is item number 3 related to utilities. The requirements is for power and telephone utility lines to be installed underground. If I understand this correctly, Mr. Good can clarify his comment as well. I believe he is trying to say that the variance is still required because there is an existing utility pole right away, which has overhead wiring attached to it. There is no overhead or above ground utilities proposed as part of the project for any service line.
So what we're referring to is sheet C9. At the site entrance, there is a note that says overhead connection. It's beautiful location.
And it looks like you're proposing overhead wires entering the site. So, just want a clarification on what we're doing.
So we are not, so as part of the driveway installation, there are two existing utility poles along our street frontage that have to be relocated to accommodate the driveway. The first utility pole I'm referring to, that's the western utility pole, that is on the western side of the driveway. There are no utilities attached to that pole. That's simply what I refer to as a guy pole. It has a guy wire attached to the utility poles across the street, and it basically holds up the utility poles. So there's no power in the telecom attached to that. We are indicating that it is an overhead wire, because it's still a guy wire, it's a supporting cable.
So on that one, just change the note, it's not an overhead wire, it's a guy wire.
That is clear. We will clarify that, yes. The second item is the, what I'll refer to as the eastern utility pole. That is a street light today that has a power line running to it from across the street. We will be using that same route to bring power into the site to that utility pole, where at that point it will go underground and service the remainder of the site. There is no above ground wire proposed as part of the service box.
Based upon that information and the note changes, I can agree that no variance is necessary for that.
So we are going to, we're gonna cross out number 3 on page 21, correct, Bryce?
Correct.
Okay.
The next item, I'll refer to the engineer's letter. So is item number 7 on page 22 regarding the frontage buffer. So this item are the applicants not taking convention to Mr. Good measurement of the buffer. What he has indicated here is that at our driveway location, we have a proposed stormwater management basin. In front of that basin is a drainage ditch which collects the water from a portion of the site and it drains into a culvert, existing culvert that goes across the roadway into the wood. We cannot propose any trees within that drainage ditch for conveyance reasons. I have spoken with our design team now. And what we can do is we can basically pipe that entire stretch so that we can plant trees along that section. Again, we do have landscaping there. We have landscaping within the stormwater basin area. There's existing one line around that area as well. But certainly the applicant's intent is to not seek a variance for that. And whatever amount of additional plantings are needed at that section beyond what's in the way of any site triangle driveway, the applicant's willing to comply.
So on this one, you're saying you will comply with the ordinance by making plan revisions.
Correct, yes.
So I am not crossing out number 7. Making it a condition to comply with number 7.
Correct, yes. Same page 22 is item number 11 regarding the parking lot trees. After reading this comment, it's my understanding that Mr. Good is taking the interpretation that the parking lot requirement for the number of trees should also include the loading zone and trailer spaces as well. So that stands that we can debate whether or not the trailer spaces should be included, but the loading docks are loading spaces, not parking spaces. We believe the calculation should not include that as it's specific to parking spaces.
Is the applicant willing to post signage that no overnight parking can occur in the loading dock spaces, that there are purely loading dock spaces only? Because a lot of places, trucks will park in loading dock spaces. They're meant for loading and unloading only.
Correct. I believe the applicant is nodding their head to that condition. Yes.
Did not hear you. You said you agreed to a condition that there's no overnight parking in the loading dock areas.
Correct.
So,
Bryce, if they agree to that condition, that means they would no longer need a variance from this ordinance provision or not?
I believe you say that you will add. That's going to count the trailer parking spaces.
So that's up to the board. Our calculations currently don't include any of the plantings in that area because we do not factor them into a parking space. If the board believes that a trailer space is a parking space, they can simply expand the calculation area to include that. The applicant will comply. I believe they comply currently, but we can demonstrate that.
Well, I understand you're gonna prohibit parking overnight in the loading dock spaces. Or is the applicant gonna prohibit overnight trailer parking in the trailer spaces?
No,
So in my opinion, in those are parking spaces, there's large parking spaces.
understood. So again, the applicant will expand the calculation area to include the trailer spaces. I do believe that we already have the plantings there to qualify for that. We will certainly provide that to Mr. Good to demonstrate compliance.
So number 11 will be a condition that you'll comply with plan revisions.
Yes, to the extent that revisions are needed, but we can demonstrate the additional calculation.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is number 12, related to the curb planting islands. Specifically, it states here that a 10-foot island is required next to the parking stalls. It's not explicitly stated here, Mr. Good, if you could clarify, you're stating that because of the van parking in the rear of the site. While we're going through that, essentially it's the applicant's stance wherever there is standard parking spaces or where practical, as noted here, in the ordinance itself, when he uses that language, the applicant has provided landscape islands. There is one location, but it's not the case. There are van parking spaces that are located behind the building where there used to be loading docks. They're sandwiched between two drive-in doors. It's located centrally in the rear of the building.
And just for clarification purposes, the ordinance section does state where practical. That's where we got into the discussion last time, and we believe that we do comply with the ordinance as written.
So you say real practically, where it's practical, you created this, right? You designed it this way. Correct?
We have laid this out, yes.
Okay, so in my opinion, I would say that this is a variance. You're not complying with it. And I would make my opinion to the board that, you have created this parking situation. You could probably take away the two spaces next to it and create those parking islands, right? There's enough space to do that.
Correct, yeah,
So it's definitely.
so depending on how the board would weigh on this, the applicant, if needed, can comply with this requirement, will simply just reshuffle van spaces as needed.
Well, for instance, my opinion is the same as Ms. Leary's, so I take it that you agree with the condition to remove, you think, 2 spaces, or remove as many spaces as required to comply with the ordinance.
We would simply relocate them, I guess.
Right, so if you locate spaces to comply with the ordinance, that would be the resolution of item 12.
And then just one final item on the same page, 22, item number 15, regarding the height of the accessory buildings. I simply just wanted to state for the record, that the pump house and the water tank are proposed at 15 feet high, which complies with the zoning requirement for accessory structure, 15 feet high. Mr. Good did bring up a point, there's a typo on our utilities plan, while our zoning table and site plan lists the correct height, call out the utility plan was missed, that will be updated. Again, the applicant will comply with the accessory structure height of 15 feet.
Okay, so what exactly the condition is, what has to be revised from what to say what?
There is a call out on the utility plan that states 30-foot water tank, water tower, the exact language. It's a typo, it should have been updated to 15 feet to match the site plan, this is like table.
Got it.
With that, the remainder of the zoning, leaf items, I believe all the consultants are in agreement on. I just wanted to cover those items to make sure we had everything set for the record. So with that, I think I really just want to give broad overview of the reasons that we did. Obviously, the general intent was to reduce the scale of development, increase the amount of buffering and plantings added. I have gone through the planning and the engineering letters. To the board or its consultants have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Either Kendra or Bryce have questions for them, the issue he just mentioned. Otherwise, we're gonna go to Mr. Carroll for his cross-examination.
I have no question at this time.
Okay, so, Mr. Carroll,
Carol.
now, I'm gonna give up my mic.
Thank you. All right, good evening. I did see that there were revised changes, and I'm very glad that you went over.
Pull it back a little.
How's that?
Slow it up.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. So the revised plans show that there was a reduction in the amount of tractor trailer bays and tractor trailer parking spaces. With that being said, even so, how many tractor trailers can theoretically be present on the property at one given time?
It's gonna depend on the tenant.
Can't hear you.
It depends on the tenant.
What's the maximum number of tractor trailers? I don't wanna, what's the maximum number of tractor trailers?
There are 32 loading docks and 74 trailer stalls.
So what does that mean?
So 106, but that doesn't really make sense because the trailer stalls are not meant to store tractors. There's just the trailer itself.
Trailers would be present. They're intended to be used, correct?
Yes, if a tenant needed that space, it would be there.
Okay, so theoretically, if the tenant wanted to use all of the available spaces at one given time, then that number would be,
106.
and nevertheless, it is the case in Mr. Hood's, report dated April 8th, that a D1 variance may potentially be needed, with regard to the use, isn't that correct?
Mr. Hood did include that in his letter, as I previously testified to. The applicant is not seeking a D1 use variance. They're proposing a light industrial facility which complies with the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. A total of 1,638 trees are now proposed from the previous 693. Are all of these trees intended to be new plantings?
Yes, they're all proposed to be planted.
Okay, and what is the size of the trees at time of planting? Will it vary?
It will depend on the type of tree. Generally speaking, for an evergreen tree, planting size is based on the height, which is 6 to 8 feet. And for a shade tree, deciduous tree, it's measured by caliper, which is the diameter of the stem. That is 2.5 to 3 inches.
Your March 31st, 2025 land use board response letter states that the height of the proposed building will be less than 45 feet, but it doesn't state an exact height. Can you state, exactly what the proposed height of the building will be?
The architect can provide testimony on it and simply say that the applicant's proposed building will be on.
And is that typical for a light industrial use?
Again, I will refer to the architect and how to lay out the building for the proposed tenants.
So just clarifying the record, you're not confirming that the height of the building will
Did
be.
you see saying that's for the architect, he's not, you can't answer that question, is that correct?
Correct.
Going off of that, your March 31st response letter states that the applicant has agreed that future tenants adhere to the maximum 30% storage area limit within the tenant spaces. And that's referring to the 30% total building floor area, correct?
Where is that in that March 31st Stonefield response?
Give me one moment.
Oh, it's on page 3, and then zoning item 1, correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, so ask your question again.
So out of the, what is the total, square footage of the proposed building?
I don't know that number offhand, the architect can provide testimony on the internal square footage.
I mean, in terms of that, just because the storage area is limited to 30% of the floor area, that doesn't necessarily mean that storage, can be implemented vertically, correct?
I'm gonna make a standing objection on all these questions that are related to the interior of the building that wasn't testified to by Mr. Strong, and wasn't testified to by our architect, who is the appropriate person to both testify and respond to this.
So let me ask you this. Who prepared the Stonefield March 31 response letter? Yeah, so he can be asked these questions. Because his response, he wrote it down, he had what number are we on there? I believe we're on page, started on page 3, item zoning 1, which was, your engineer said that the variance is not being sought by the applicant agrees to have future prospective tenants, once determined, appear before the land use board, post site plan approval, and pre-CO, to have their operations reviewed to determine that they meet the definition of light industrial. Then you got into the storage question.
And that would be on page 4, item 3. The applicant had your response, is that the applicant has agreed to have the future tenants adhere to the maximum 30% storage area limit within the tenant spaces.
And then the next sentence is the applicant's architect will testify further to the internal layout. But his question was to the first sentence, which your engineer wrote.
Yes,
It said the applicant has agreed to have the future tenants adhere to the maximum 30% storage area limit within the tenant spaces. And he wants to know, how are they gonna determine that?
I mean, the delineation will be determined, the architect will speak to the internal layout, I'm simply stating that the applicant is looking to comply for the maximum 30% storage area, not seeking relief from that. The architect will talk more about the internal workings of the building, and how that storage area is delineated. I'm simply stating that the applicant will comply with that requirement.
Let's see. At the, can you tell me what the elevation of the, proposed building is?
When you say elevation, you mean the finished floor of the building?
That's correct.
Give me one moment, I'm going to refer to the grading plan that was previously submitted. You can see 7, the finished floor of the building is 320, elevation 320.
And at a height of 320 feet, would the proposed plantings in any way limit the amount of, dampen the amount of noise that's generated from the site?
I'm not an acoustic expert, I can't answer that.
And just to confirm, no acoustic study was performed as part of this application.
No.
As was asked in my previous examination from March 13th, there was some discussion as to what kind of security measures would be taking place now in light of this revised plan. Is the applicant proposing any kind of security measures to limit access to the site outside of operating hours?
But I believe this was already talked to and testified to. At this point, there is no restriction at the driveway. Tenants, depending on who they are, ultimately will have their own security plans, and at that point, it will be determined. I did mention that there are security lighting protocols that will be vetted with the Township's Police Department in terms of security lighting levels on site, during off hours.
I thought, looking at my notes, I thought there was a discussion about whether or not you put a fence in. I believe you guys said you would consider it, and then either show it or not show it on the plan. So you did not provide the plans to have a fence at the driveway to prevent trucks from coming in during hours when you're not open?
There is no fence to here.
Is there a reason that you decided not to put a fence?
Well, I can say,
A gate.
if the board feels that it should be a condition of approval, I believe we would be okay with that. However, we don't think it's necessary or appropriate for, this type of meeting.
Well, I understand you don't believe it's necessary. Why don't you believe it's appropriate? If there's a limited hours of operation, the gate would keep trucks out when it's closed, why would that be inappropriate?
Well, because the tenants and the building operator wouldn't schedule deliveries for pickup or drop off when the building's closed.
They might not schedule it, but what if the truck came? Wouldn't the best way to keep the truck out? In the simplest way, is to put the gate up? Again, I'm not quibbling over, you don't think it's necessary, I understand, but you said you don't think it's appropriate.
Right, well, we can ask the traffic engineer might be able to give better testimony on whether or not it's better to put a gate at the entrance to have a truck back up onto the street, or whether or not it's better to circulate and realize the building's closed and then exit through the normal course.
So you can, but if the board wanted to impose that condition, you're saying you would agree, but we're gonna have the traffic engineer respond.
Yes.
So just to confirm that there are no measures that are being taken place to ensure that, you know, the parking tractor trailers won't park on site and outside of operating hours.
There is none currently, as you heard the testimony between the board attorney and project attorney, that could be a condition of approval should the board, add it in. We will also have a traffic expert who will provide testimony.
In terms of proposed signage, it was noted that, you would be leaving any proposed signage on the frontage of the property as you're entering the site to the prospective tenant, correct?
So currently, there's a monument sign that is shown as a placeholder on the plans to ensure that it meets geometrically the requirements for the sign setback. There's no details on the sign because it will depend on the ultimate tenant. As the applicant stands right now, they're not seeking any relief for any sign. Should an applicant or should a tenant come in the future and they would like to request a bigger sign or a different sign than what's allowed by code, they'll come back before this board under a different application.
And ultimately, who would be responsible for arranging for trash collection on the site?
That would be building management and property management.
So it will be the tenant's responsibility.
No, there would be, as I understand, building management, and property management, it's separate from the tenants.
May I ask a clarifying question regarding the signage? I just wanted to piggyback on that. If there's more than one tenant, how do you figure out who this will be put on the sign, or is this just gonna be called one?
It's, again, it's gonna be both the Kingston.
Yeah, like this.
So, I don't know what marketing or idea of the signage that the applicant has at this time. There are options, if it's a multi-tenant building, you know, you may see 4 tenant names, it might just be the name of the facility, like you mentioned. I couldn't speak to what the applicant is looking to do at this time or the exact wording of the sign.
But you want to keep the monument sign on as part of the site plan application, but you're not sure exactly how it will be used necessarily.
If you have no proposal other than a thing, why don't you just take it off? And if you want a sign, is that assuming the board approves this, then you come back for a sign. Because you're gonna have so many questions that you can't answer about the sign because you don't know.
We have the location of the sign, which is important, so that we have it on the site plan, the location of the monument sign, it's a site detail, we'll even provide it for you before this board has an opportunity to vote on it, or what you say.
Okay, so either you're gonna provide details so the board can review it and either approve it or disapprove it, or if you don't provide the details, it stays like it is right now, the condition will be removed from the plans, correct?
We're seeking the location. The location of the sign.
This board has never approved.
Then we will, if that's the case, then we will provide you something so that you can make an informed decision.
Thank you.
And on these revised plans included, proposed office spaces, correct?
I would have to look at the architectural plans, but if they're showing tenant spaces with offices, then yes.
I'm just looking at the proposed office spaces that are located towards the south of the proposed building. Are those proposed office spaces subject to change based on what tenants may or may not be present in the building?
Correct, I mean, they're shown right now as a potential office location, it will depend on the number of tenants in the building for how the office will be configured.
And will each tenant have common use of each office space, or will they be designated per tenant?
I mean, it's my understanding, it's very common for it to be designated office space, it wouldn't be common for all tenants.
Thank you. You're proposing to move the access drive approximately 50 feet, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell me what the revised distance, from this access drive to Bloomsbury Road is?
Certainly. Give me one moment to find it here. So previously, the applicant was proposing 51.9 feet, currently proposed, it should approximately, we'll call it 57 feet, be 108.5 feet, from the intersection.
Thank you. With regard to the lighting fixtures, during the nighttime hours, will those lighting fixtures be dark sky compliant?
Correct. All exterior light fixtures proposed as part of this application will be energy efficient LED dark sky compliant fixtures.
And as to signage again on the property, will there be any speed limit signage throughout the site?
I don't believe any is proposed, shown as being called out, but certainly if the board feels that there should be speed limit signs posted around the site, the applicant will be willing to do that.
So just to confirm this might be up to the tenant or anything like that, but will tractor trailers be permitted to park overnight in parking spaces?
I could not speak to that. I know trailers will be stored overnight. And it was previously stated that tractor trailers would not be allowed to park overnight in the loading docks.
Yes, sir. Is there any kind of staging plan that's proposed for trucks that are entering the site during the beginning of operating hours?
You mean if there's a queue of trucks as the facility opens?
That's correct.
No, it's not anticipated that would occur as part of this.
So make sure. And trailer. Both of the trailer can be parked overnight in the trailer parking spaces, not in a loading dock, correct?
Correct.
But tractors are not going to be parked overnight, correct? Or incorrect?
Tractors will not be allowed to park in the loading docks and they will not fit in the trailer stalls. The trailer stalls are on the sides of the trailer.
Right, but tractors will not be, tractors will be prohibited from parking overnight at the site, correct?
Yes, correct.
So that, if the board's gonna grant an approval, that should be a condition, correct?
I'm not sure that that's in the ordinance, we're applying with the ordinance and to double check what the ordinance requires.
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay,
But just so you don't have any parking spaces for tractor on the site plan. And the board has a standard condition that you have, that any applicant that gets a site plan approval, they have to park pursuant to the plan. And there's no parking spaces for tractors on the plan, correct? It's an engineering question.
Yeah, I mean, the spaces could accommodate a tractor.
Before, yeah, you said only because it's not in the trailer, you're saying they attach the tractor to the trailer, it goes into the tractor. Let's just get the ordinance and see. Because what the board is gonna be concerned with, I'm not speaking on their behalf, but I've been involved with them a long time, is that this does not become a tractor trailer parking facility.
Well,
That's what they're exactly, that's why the question about the gate, and that's why the question about can tractors park there overnight? Because if tractors are prohibited from parking there overnight, then the board would not have to worry. After the gate, the board would not have to worry about tractor trailer parking. So
The applicant is not seeking a variance, we're looking to comply with the ordinance, but we will get back to, get back to you after we discuss it and see what the intent would be, so that we don't just make a
So
concession.
just, for now, I'm putting down the condition, no tractor shall be parked overnight. And then you can get back to us if you want to change that, but
Yes, that's what I'm asking. Just so we're all on the same page and speak.
I have no further questions on this time.
have we found any of the ordinance yet or not? We're still looking. All right, so I think it's Mr. Kaplan's current cross examination.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, John Kaplan, Norwell in Warren Township, New Jersey, on behalf of Savins Preservation Alliance.
So, first. No, they want to.
Certainly.
And that's why we couldn't hear what they're saying.
Right, so keep it about 6 inches like this, it's enunciated.
Your current proposal has been. Did you base this on a concept plan that's provided to you, or just what your client requested?
This was done in conjunction with the project team, so all the professionals worked together to amend the layout based on the feedback that we received from this board and its professionals.
Have you ever designed a light industrial facility in Greenwich Township?
And Greenwich Township, no,
What about Warren and Overton counties?
no,
Have you ever testified before on behalf of Tinsley projects?
for this applicant, no.
And at this time, we're still waiting on determination of seasonal high water level and soil studies, tested studies, right?
That is correct. Geotechnical testing, I believe, was actively being performed on site to obtain more information. I don't know if the testing has fully concluded, but we are waiting on the results of that study.
Is that testing also being done to design the stormwater management plan?
Correct.
And we just want to, for the record, I want to ask Bryce, I know that the gentleman's were getting this report filed, but I believe I saw something in there about reserving the right to review stormwater management. They haven't designed it yet. Can you talk about that, please? We just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
The revised submission only included the revisions to the site plan documents, and revised stormwater report has not been submitted, so therefore we reserve the right to review the new stormwater report that will have to be submitted to match the current plan.
And is that the testing that has been going on for the last couple of weeks? But
That's also testing.
also separate geotechnical testing? Or geotechnical and stormwater testing, or one or the other?
So I lumped it together under the geotechnical branch. There was testing being performed for the septic facility as well as the stormwater management facilities.
Okay.
And at this time, we do have a letter of interpretation from the DEP, correct?
Correct.
And the township of Greenwich, freshwater wetlands, rivers, et cetera, are not the only environmental constraints on the property. Correct, there's an ordinance requiring you to be 250 feet away, correct?
The rest there is, the river, bank of river setback of 250 feet.
As part of your LOI application process, the DEP identify the top of the bank.
They did not, no. We have it located on our survey, which will be included in our DEP submission when we file for flood hazard area, which is related to the waterway. Wetlands typically doesn't delineate the top of bank.
If the DEP did delineate a top of bank different than yours, it would change all your setbacks, correct?
Correct, hypothetically, yes. But again, we had our own licensed surveyor, go out there. Meet at the bottom and top of the bank. It is shown on our survey document that will be submitted to the DEP for review. The DEP does go out to the site, they visit the site, they walk the site, verify the information that we have, that's correct.
And it's not correct.
I mean, it's again a hypothetical question. If it's not correct, it will be revised.
Is the top of the stream bank shown on the plans now?
It may not be shown on every single sheet because the top of the bank is shown on the other side of the.
Is it only shown on the survey you submitted, or is it shown on
It's
any?
definitely shown on the survey. It's partially shown on some of the sheets. You can see part of it, because again, the version doesn't show property across, the highway. It only shows it partially.
Getting back to the 250-foot setback in the Mustin Neck River. And we just discussed it, they're not finding the stormwater management plan, so.
Our stormwater design has been finalized as best as we can. Preliminary testing, geotech testing was performed that we base our design on.
Right,
We have updated.
it wasn't submitted yet.
Correct. So again, as discussed earlier, there were time constraints. We prioritized updating the geometric layout. So before we go through all the nitty-gritty and the calculations for Mr. Bryce's review, we wanted to make sure that the board was agreeable generally with the layout that we had proposed. We internally have already run some of these calculations to make sure that the site works. You guys would want to propose something that doesn't. So we have internally ran those calculations. We're certainly going to submit them to Mr. David for his review, so he can determine compliance with the stormwater.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question with regards to the layout, because you obviously made some changes to that. And since we're on this idea of stormwater management design based upon the new layout, we had talked about looking at alternative designs the last meeting, correct?
Yeah, you said you were gonna consider it, then you're gonna report back, because Kendra had suggested shifting the building, and you said you were gonna look into it. Did you look into it?
There was a discussion that the project team had, what was being presented before you is what the applicant's team has agreed upon as the revised plan.
So have you looked at alternative, layouts that would, reduce any of the other variances? Specifically, the one that I'm most concerned about is the, truck, access drive and parking within, in front of the building. And so you have, I don't know how many acres that sit behind that building. Have you looked at alternative layouts of the building, alternative layouts of where parking and the truck access drive could go?
I remember what Kendra had suggested was taking the building, which is now basically laid out in east-west location, turning it north-south, so that the side of the building would be facing front yard and it would have much less parking. Do you recall that?
I do. So what was discussed at the last hearing, and I'll state it again, and while we have looked at those options, we looked at a few different options. In the beginning, the conceptual design process, for laying out the building, picking different locations, factor in earthwork, factor in grading, different engineering aspects to see what would be the best design for the site. We have proposed this layout. Generally speaking, as I testified to in my last hearing, there is a fair amount of grade change on the site. If you were to rotate the building to the orientation that the board planner suggested, it requires a significant amount more of cut. Generally want the building to run perpendicular or parallel with contours so that there's less grade change at that immediate building footprint. If you were to rotate it, the grade change is more significant than what that all understand. There are other discussions about where parking is located, where the loading is happening, obviously in this orientation. The activity, we'll call it the loading docks and the trailer stalls, everything is screened behind the building. And in a typical light industrial layout or any industrial layout, you have those office layouts located opposite the dock. So they're located in the front of the building. That is where we have some parking located. As part of the resubmission that we did submit to the board, the parking was reduced in the front yard. We've added more landscaping in the front yard. We've reduced the retaining walls. We've taken some of that parking to the side of the building, to the back of the building. So we have reduced the amount of improvements in that front yard buffer, including, of course, the removal of the two-story wall as well.
So you said that the layout is best suited for what you're proposing, but not necessarily best suited in a way that would meet the ordinance requirements. Correct?
Correct.
And I would imagine that your planner is gonna provide testimony as it relates to the bulk of the variances that are required for everything to be behind the building, that this is the best layout based upon the site conditions.
Yes, our planner will provide testimony.
And the question I have about, you had indicated there's more cut required. What's wrong with cutting the site and pulling that building down into the grade?
I mean, it's a significantly more work retaining walls, to overall scale, and scope of construction. I mean, with this layout, again, there's very little activity in the front of the site. You have the offices there, you have a single drive aisle parking for employees located there, and you have a circulation aisle. So the remainder of the site, all between the circulation aisle and the parking lot, between the circulation aisle and the site frontage have been significantly landscaped and buffered.
Right, but, I mean, you would agree, I'm sorry, Mr. Crackman, for taking all of your time, but you would agree that the proposed plantings at 6 to 8 foot in height of evergreens. And I asked for an exhibit, and I don't know if you're gonna have one or not, but an exhibit of what that looks like, both in planting in 10 years and 20 years, as it relates to viewscapes, from Route 173, as well as the residential area, correct?
We are going to provide you with an exhibit, that's a architectural exhibit, or architecture, the architect testifies, he will provide those line of sights. And it will be clear, hopefully, on what to speak for him, but the way this layout is, with all the changes, with the reduction of the drive aisle on front of the site, and the addition of the 1,000 or so plantings that we had, that the site, or sorry, the building should not be visible from the street other than at the entrance where there's an opening. So we'll go through all of that, but
There's that, well, you can't testify, but you're providing information that you will not be able to see the building from Route 173.
as you stated, that's what I believe the architects would see. I've seen what the preliminary exhibits have shown, and it's telling you by looking at this, additional plantings and the changes that we've made, that was the design intent. The architect will either confirm that or answer that for you, but we believe we achieved what we were looking for through this design by being able to keep it without having to drastically change everything and impact our stormwater and adequate variances that would be created by turning the building to the side.
And while, I mean, to be honest, it's not what I'm looking for. This isn't, you still need variances. I'd rather see a variance-free plan. I think in this particular instance, the biggest variance I'm most concerned about is all of the retaining walls, the truck access and the parking that faces Route 173. The reason why the ordinance was designed the way it was to help to reduce that impact on residential properties. And just let me finish. And what has been done has been maybe a 10% improvement, but definitely not reducing the variance requirement. Your biggest retaining walls face the residential corner of the property, and I'd be very happy to see your exhibit that you're telling me that you're not going to see this building, and we'll wait to see what that looks like. But I think that there could be more done to get that parking out from the front of that building. You have plenty of space in the rear of the property, and I think you can do a different design for the truck access.
Sorry for the interruption.
Getting back to your stormwater design, you just testified earlier this evening, proposed to remove a ditch in the front, the basin, and replacement of pipe, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so would that change your overall stormwater design?
It would not, no. What happens today is that there is a swale along the farm, frontage that goes to one of 3 culverts that run across the roadway. At one of the swale locations, we are installing a driveway. To continue the flow along farmland, along the frontage, we have installed, basically a culvert that crosses the driveway. It just continues that runoff to that culvert. Because it's being used as conveyance, we did not originally plant it, but at the advice of, well, I would say advice, but that's noted by Mr. Good, that doesn't comply with the frontage buffer requirements for additional landscaping. So instead of adding that in, we're simply going to pipe that runoff to the existing head wall, the existing culvert that's there. All the water that we previously had going there, under those conditions, will remain the same, we're not changing those drainage patterns.
And you testified previously that there's a 105-foot grade difference overall, so correct?
Correct.
And in relation to that, there's slopes that exceed 15%, correct?
I believe that is the case, yes. There are locations. Generally speaking, the slope on the site is roughly around 10%, but there are areas, 15% or greater areas.
When you revise plan, in the rear appears to be incorrect, 55-foot horizontal, an elevation of 55 feet or horizontal distance of 165 feet, 33% slope, correct?
We refer to this 3-to-1, but yes, that's correct.
And at this time, have you proposed to prevent any sort of soil runoff problems?
So as part of this project, the applicant will be submitting to the Soil Conservation District for legal review of soil erosion measures and controls. A 3-to-1 slope is considered industry or safe for soil erosion. That being said, that embankment that you reference is not simply grass, it is planted, it's native meadow where it will take root. Additionally, we have swales located at the bottom to collect runoff away from the site, so I do not believe there will be no additional concern.
And in the Greenwich Township ordinance, environmentally critical areas are those which contain steep slopes, among other things, right?
I don't have that ordinance in front of me, so it's section 45.
Sorry, section what?
25.
25 what?
Dash
I mean, can you repeat the question, please?
The Greenwich Township ordinance defines environmentally critical areas as those which contain steep slopes, among other things.
Isn't that correct? This is the question.
Okay, I believe the answer is you have the ordinance in front of them, so
Do you have the ordinance?
I don't have anything.
Read the ordinance section one more time.
25
6 inches, but this way, not this way.
25
One more time, the full ordinance. It can't be this 25 days. Gotta be something missing.
I'm sorry, I have my.
Ask the question without using the ordinance section, and see if we can find it. Just say, does the ordinance, not section.
Does the ordinance state that an environmentally critical area is one which can contain steep slopes, among other things?
We're gonna look. We don't know. You don't know. You didn't have the ordinance in front of them.
My ordinance is in the car, I have a section if I need to get it.
Yeah, we'll look at it. Keep on going. Keep on going.
When you design your stormwater management system,
Got it.
you're going to disturb some steep slopes, correct?
If steep slopes are at the stage over 15% slope, then yes. I will note that the majority of the site is farmland, actively farmed. So there's no ecological benefit to that. It's not, it's not.
Right, they're not moving the question. The question was, when you install your stormwater management facilities, will you disturb the steep slope, is it a yes or a no?
We would have to know what is defined as steep slope in the ordinance.
Do you know what's defined as steep slope in the ordinance? Wait, hold on, let's see, they're engineer who designed the site, do you know what's defined as steep slope in the ordinance?
Mr. Joe, we shouldn't challenge the engineer to memorize the entire ordinance.
I wanted to see.
You had the benefit of having the ordinance in his hand when you drafted the plan.
Right, you can't answer the question, smart, give him a microphone.
I'm not, I'm objecting to the question.
What's the objection?
I'm objecting because you're asking him a question. Oh, well, then I guess it's an okay question. I'm just commenting that I don't think it's
Right,
appropriate.
you're not allowed.
I like to answer the thing.
I'm not on. You give him the microphone, it's totally inappropriate for you to answer a question for the witness. I give him the microphone here, I'll give him the call, give him the microphone. If the answer is you don't recall, I have to look, it doesn't say that, but as you stand here, do you know how the ordinance defines steep slope?
I don't recall.
Andrew, we know.
So there's a section in the ordinance called environmental impact statements, it's section 6-2.7. And that it requires an environmental impact statement if 20% or more of the development site contains any combination of environmental sensitive areas.
Slow.
Sorry, environmentally sensitive areas, i.e. steep slopes that are in excess of 20%.
Now, they happen to have submitted an environmental impact outline, it says, dated April 26, 2024, and it was signed by the witness, correct?
We did submit an environmental impact statement.
And you signed it, you put your stamp and seal on it, correct?
Correct.
So can you look in there and see if the answer perhaps within your environmental impact outline?
Certainly. So I'm looking at page 3 of the environmental impact outline, which has an inventory of existing environmental conditions. It has a discussion on topography. It does not reference steep slopes.
Keep on going.
Well, the previous ordinance requires that stormwater management measures be designed to take into account environmentally critical areas, right?
I believe so. Our stormwater management system has been designed to collect runoff from all disturbed portions of the property. Anything that is part of
The actual stormwater management system, basins, pipes, et cetera. Do you take into account when you design that in environmentally critical areas?
Yes.
How so?
So as I testified to in the first hearing, there are a number of environmental items on the project, one of which is the 250-foot buffer that you referred to. The NJDEP uses a different system, still measured from the top of the bank. It's 300 feet. It's what's known as a riparian zone, which for all intents and purposes is a stream buffer. In addition to that, there's also a flood hazard in it, which is based on the 100-year floodplain plus an additional 25%. And that is based on the future runoff, which during the last set of regulations that was passed by the DEP includes factors for climate change. So it is designed on the 100-year storm for the year 100, that flooding condition. So there's a flood hazard area located in front of the site. As mentioned, there is a township 250-foot buffer. And then in addition to that, the waterway is classified as a category 1. Again, I've spoken to this in the last hearing. There are requirements for that to be under flood riparian zone based on the category 1.
Well, that might be any
side. And all of that was factored into the stormwater design, so yes.
Getting back to the same question, I was asking about the steep slopes. What did you do when you took those into account?
So any area that are steep slopes that are disturbed, again, anything that is disturbed as part of the project area is collected and conveyed to one of our stormwater management systems.
Okay, when you design the basins, the pipes, any disturbance in the soil that are steep slopes, did you take those into consideration when you designed the system?
I've already stated that any disturbed areas, including any steep slope areas, have been collected and conveyed to the stormwater systems that we have designed.
Only your plan show excavation is through the 44 feet, right?
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, can you read that?
Your plans show an excavation is deep as 44 feet, correct?
Not the exact number, but we have a large cut in the back of the site. Yes.
And while we're still waiting for geotechnical borings, you did submit some previously for a previous project, correct?
Correct.
And those showed bedrock shell is 4 feet, correct?
Again, I don't have the exact depth, but yes, there was been wrong encounter.
When you're excavating to 44 feet, how is that excavation done?
Again, the means and methods of the contractor at the time, when the intent was to use.
So you plan to use blasting or
I can't talk about the means and methods of construction, it's gonna be up to the applicant and the GC during the time of construction. There are methods to remove the rock down.
All right, into retaining walls. They've been reduced. And we still don't have the details of those walls, right?
The applicant is in the process of retaining a structural engineer to prepare schematic structural sections for that wall. As it was discussed at the last hearing, while it is atypical in the applicant's opinion to prepare that level of detailed plans, it usually happens as part of the building department review. The applicant is actively seeking structural engineers to prepare them and submit them to this board.
Sorry, I want to go back one step. In your statement, you said that it isn't. If blasting is necessary, it'll only be determined during construction.
I can't speak to how the rock is gonna be removed, I'm not a general contractor, there are different methods to remove rock from the site. One of them is blasting, yes. But that's not usually done.
So will there be a geotechnical engineer, since there is geotechnical studies being done, will there be a geotechnical engineer testifying to the classification of the rocks on site? The fact that there may be blasting is an item that cannot wait until construction. These are large, deep cuts, 40+ feet. This board will have to understand if blasting is gonna be needed.
So in order for us to make that determination, we would need to have studies finalized, right? We don't have that information, so we don't know if it's even relevant at this point in time. Once we determine and submit it to the board, whether or not we can determine and you can certainly tell us if you believe it's relevant. At that point in time, we would then, if required, have the geotechnical engineer testify. Okay, question.
But the easiest way to do this, if you don't have a geotech testify, then there should be a condition, if the board will approve it, it's no blast.
And we're waiting on those results to see if there's even a consideration at this point in time. If it's an irrelevant discussion, then, just going round and round. It's just a hypothetical at this point. We committed to provide those, testing results to the board and we will, once they're available. And at that point in time, if it becomes evident that there's a possibility, we'll be able to better answer that question. Right now, it's just, hypothetical.
Other item that I would bring forth when that is brought, when that study is completed and brought forth is the testimony has been that the plan show that this is the intention of the applicant to
Well, what the door is.
balance the earthwork on site, nothing called off, nothing called on. With the amount of rock that can be removed either by blasting or other methods. I think it would behoove the applicant to show how that rock will be used on site. The amount of rock is anticipated to be excavated, rock is not soil, it's not aquifer soil. Be able to use it as a standard cut fill material is takes special measure, understand that's construction measure. But being able to say it's a balanced site without knowing how the rock will be excavated, I do not believe is a plausible statement to make.
I mean, again, I understand your concerns, so good, and as we stated before, we are waiting on the results of that second phase of geotechnical explorations. Once we have more information, we'll certainly take a closer look at it and provide you with the information that.
Back to the steep slopes part, is there anywhere on the site plans that shows where steep slopes are?
No, we showed the topography to the 1 foot contour on the vertical plan in the survey. There's no hatched areas or steep slopes.
Is it your testimony that there are no steep slopes on the
I
property?
did not say that. So the average grade on site is about 10%. I'm sure there are areas around the site that are greater than 10%, 15%.
Well, it seems to me that you're gonna have to make a submission. You're gonna need a steep slope analysis, the plans are there. Not only the board, I mean, the board professionals can see if any of the steep slope areas are disturbed or not. I mean, if you have steep slopes, you're not disturbing the areas, good for you. But if you have steep slopes, they gotta be disturbed, they need to see it.
Understood, we can prepare a slopes analysis.
Oh, no.
That all depends what you're talking on geology. So you're not gonna testify as anything like the karst geology of the area, and I reserve that to the future date, right?
Now, do it now, because it's in Mr. Good's report, it's on page 12, under grading and geotechnical. He raised a question in regard to 57 about providing impact of steep slope. I just asked them, they're going to submit something. Item 58, Mr. Good says, I'm quoting, "A preliminary analysis of the competency of the existing bedrock underlying the site to accept the development as currently proposed must be provided as the Whitestone report does not reflect the proposed development. The applicant's engineer must provide testimony regarding the suitability of the soils and bedrock, this is what you stated before, located within the site for proposed development, and whether the proposed earthwork will pose an increased risk of sinkhole formation and loss of groundwater. The applicant's engineer should also provide testimony to the feasibility of earthwork cuts in excess of 44 feet when the borings indicate the top of rock at a depth of 6 feet and at least one boring. Period, end quote. So if you, as a civil engineer, are not competent to give this testimony because you need a specialist, then you gotta get a specialist. Can you answer Mr. Good's questions? That's it. Can you answer Mr. Good's question? It's a yes or no?
Well, Mr. Good, I would talk about Mr. Carroll.
No. Can,
Or Mr.
No, at this time, I did not perform a geotechnical study, so I'm not gonna speak to it.
yeah, I believe in the beginning of the hearing, though, you said you did have some geotechnical background.
Yes, but then I also said that I'm not here to qualify as an expert in the field of geotechnical engineering, I'm simply here for something.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said. So the applicant's got to decide what they're going to do about it, but it seems to me, to answer Mr. Good's questions, you need someone who's competent. You need a geotechnical engineer to testify, but that's up to you. I keep on interrupting you, sorry, you get me thinking about these things.
Not a problem. Previously, you testified to 3 existing culverts under Route 173, correct?
Correct.
Will be maintained post-construction and continue to convey stormwater post-construction to the next, plus connect that river bank.
Correct.
Am I reading the plans correctly? They can keep the 2 of those 3 culverts in this now that's currently buried.
Currently what?
Buried. Buried.
I'll have to refer to the survey, but that may be the case, I'm referring to the site plan survey.
It would be C2, sheet D2.
Yes, there is indication that some of those boulders may be also over. So any sediment from the farm field or other locations, they be partially blocking those pipes. There's a part of this application, those pipes will be blocked.
Is that gonna change any of the existing conditions on the property when you open them up?
No, all the runoff from this lake is tributary to the water. Everything drains from Route 78 to Route 173 and then out to the waterway. There are several pipes along the frontage that collect runoff and convey it to the waterway. Even if they are partially bottom, they'll simply still be drained to that waterway.
No, plans is anywhere identified as a discharge from a floor drain in the building, correct?
The internal building MEPs have designed at this point, so we know general points of entry or exit, utilities coming in and out. There's that will connect the stormwater system. In terms of any internal building drains that have been down yet. But to be noted that because they are not stormwater lines and collect runoff, they will tie into the sanitary system rather than the drainage system.
So any industrial waste, which You don't know the intent now, you don't know if there will be. That's all will be part of your application to the Board of Health regarding your septic system.
Correct.
And your septic system design is not done yet, correct?
Testing was being performed at the same time as the testing for the stormwater management.
Can you give us an idea of the system's function, the plan design, everything?
There's a separate septic engineer that has been retained to do that design. There are two options. The one option that's currently depicted on the plans is what is called a standard disposal field, so like a septic field.
Well, a standard what?
Disposal field, which is basically a septic. It's a series of pipes with perforated pipes, stone casing that's installed on the ground that will spread out the sanitary infiltrate into the ground.
And do you know how much wastewater this system can handle?
The preliminary designs are roughly in the range of 5,000 to 6,000 gallons per day based on the number, based on the usage of the building. There's a certain requirement and calculation that's done at the state level based on the use. So based on that, it should be in the range of 5,000 to 6,000. I don't have the exact number on it.
Well, moving on. We were proposing 54 working days, now 32.
I didn't.
You were proposing 54 living days, now 32. Do you have any study report evidence to conclude that previously 54, now 32 living days is customary or otherwise needed for 185,000 square feet of light industrial facility, devoted to assembly products?
So I'm not gonna speak on the marketability of the building, but something that the architect can chime in on in terms of the number of moving docks that they believe the tenant space requires.
You have any idea of the numbers, types, size of trucks that we're using on loading docks?
We have a traffic engineer who will provide testimony on the size and type of trucks that are anticipated to access the new lodging site.
So you testified today that the number of trees that you'll be planting, correct?
Yes, it's a total of 1,638 trees.
I have a question, I'm assuming you're pointing to the architect, but I believe
Don't assume anything.
the architect did submit some sightline renderings. Those top of the sightline came from the top of trees. Are you familiar with those trees?
He prefaced the question by the architect, proposed the plan. Let's just ask the architect about his plan rather than the engineer.
Did the architect prepare the sightline drawings? Did you have anything to do with it?
I did not.
Mr. Carroll, noise.
So what?
Noise. He doesn't have to ask about noise, Mr. Carroll didn't.
And the lighting design, you designed that, correct?
Sorry, the what was that?
Lighting,
Yes,
and presently, your proposal, while there are two still exceeds what's permitted, correct?
that is correct. I just, point of clarification, because I just want to make sure that we also understand the requirement. As I interpret it, the requirement is to have an average foot candle illumination level of 0.5. I just want to confirm, normally the way that the code is written, is that it's neither specified as a maximum or minimum, it simply says the average. So if that's,
Yeah, you're correct, yeah.
so if that's the case, we would still require, it would have to be spot on 0.5. As I testified to previously, lighting is a flux measurement, it's very fluid, we can't just fix a certain illumination at a certain level, it's not the way the lights work, they're brighter immediately under the light, and the lighting fades.
Low
with time. So we had as part of this project, revise the lighting design to improve that lighting variance and bring it closer to what the board and the zoning ordinance is looking for in terms of average illumination. As I previously testified to, and as a refresher, keep talking about these different measurements. It's called a foot candle. It's simply the illumination of one candle within 1 square foot. So that's 1 foot candle. The requirement for the average is half a foot candle in the vehicular loading areas. We're at 0.81. So we're talking about the lighting intensity of, essentially a candle within a square foot, and it's even less than that. We do believe that this is an appropriate lighting level for this project. And as previously testified to, we are going to work with the Township Police Department, determining the amount of security lighting that will be proposed throughout the site when the site is not operational.
So your place is going to be, with regard to security lighting, at least, which lights and which times are going to be illuminated?
Well, the lights will be the lights will be ongoing building operations, which we talked about at the last hearing. I don't have the exact time in front of me. I'll find it. But yes, so after hours, once the building is closed, then only the security lighting will remain. So only a portion of the lights will be on. Yes, and as previously testified at the last hearing, there's also been spillover proposals onto the adjoining property line. And as I clarified to the prior attorney asking questions, all the fixtures, again, energy saving LED fixtures, and they are all dark sky compliant, full cut off.
And this site is located in a historic neighborhood, close to Wilkes-Barre Historic District, correct?
Let me just check the question. Oh, okay, so your objection? I'm gonna object to the question. What's the objection?
It was a compound question. He asked 2 questions in one.
Okay, can you break the question down, please?
Is this site located in a historic neighborhood?
It is located in a historic district, yes.
And there are historic ruins on the site, correct?
The dwelling is known as Peter's Farm, I believe, and it is listed as an eligible property, but it is not federally or state listed as a historical property.
And while you didn't testify to this, your attorney did say at the beginning of the hearing that they were told that they can tear it down.
And to elaborate on the response, our office has been in contact with what I call SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office. We have discussed the house with them. We clarified with them that the state and federal funds will be used on the project, and that they confirmed that the project, again, the dwelling is not listed on the state or national register. The SHPO office will still be involved in the review process when we submit to the DEP, but they have noted that because we're not using federal or government funds, and because the property is not currently listed, they believe that we can tear it down, but they will also make another opinion filed to the DEP. Obviously, these conversations that we had were over the phone, or I would say informal. The SHPO is not issuing a formal declaration, but we have reached out to them and started a conversation because we wanted clarity on this issue before we propose it on the plans.
Do you have any like confirming email after a phone conversation that you can submit to the board file?
I think we may have like an affirmative email. I don't know if it's like an elaborate
It
email.
doesn't have to be elaborate, just something to confirm that.
You did testify, you did just testify to it.
I understand, but did you speak directly with someone at SHPO or someone in your? Right. So can you get an email and submit it?
I do believe we have one, yes. Thank you about that.
Should any of your tenants require additional refrigeration and heating requirements in all office areas, is there an area on site where this is going to be installed?
I mean, I'm not familiar with refrigeration equipment and the size requirements needed for that. Again, hypothetical, depending on the tenant, yes, there are rooms that have concrete pads for the small equipment, but that's really a question for the architects to talk about any rooftop mechanical equipment and like.
Well, can you testify, will those areas be visible from the parking lot? the street, the neighborhood?
We already advised that we will be providing lines of sight with the engineer, the architect testifies.
No, I understand, but I could be wrong, I could be using this with another application, but I thought that someone had asked if you're gonna have any ground mounted HVAC equipment or roof mounted, and I thought that you had an answer. Again, I could be confusing this with another.
In regards to any HVAC rooftop equipment, that is for the architect to testify to, they're familiar with it. There's a comment from your board planner on it, and you don't have to testify. There is a secondary question about emergency backup generator. And at this time, the applicant's not seeking to install one, and none is being proposed on site. Should a tenant want one, if needed by the board, if it triggers a review, they'll come back to that.
So, as of right now, the applicant would be willing to accept the condition that there can't be any ground mounted HVAC equipment. It's gotta be up on the roof, correct? And the architect will address it?
I think the architect will address it, probably specifically to that, I mean, unless there's a reason why, and the fact that it's unknown at this point. We take the testimony that Mr. Strong just gave was, it's not proposed on this plan, if we needed it to trigger site plan review, or additional review, we can come back, if it doesn't trigger that review, then we can just add it out. So I don't want to necessarily stipulate or limiting what we can do in the future, if it's not required by the board.
Generally, again, it's the difference between a preliminary site plan approval and a final site.
It's not on the plan, so it won't be approved. So we would need your approval if it's required, but if it wasn't required, meaning it didn't trigger a variance or any impervious coverage issues, then we wouldn't have to necessarily come back to the board just to put a generator on the site.
No ground mounted HVAC equipment approved because no ground mounted HVAC equipment proposed. That's fair, right?
But we don't have any rooftop units, necessarily.
You want me to put that as a condition too?
No.
He said the architect is gonna be roof mounted and the architect will address it.
I don't know. It was in response to the question about the roof mounted units, that's what we got on this topic.
Sorry again.
No problem. As far as your amended application, you increased the width of the driveway from 35 to 45 feet, correct?
It was from 40 to 45, I guess it has increased. The requirement is for 45. For the design waiver, it's on.
And does this eliminate the previous point of the engineer's report that the trucks turning into the property will cross the center line?
That is correct. So as part of the relocation of the driveway, it's reoriented slightly, and because of that, we have changed the geometry. We have gone ahead and rerouted truck movements through that driveway to ensure that two vehicles, two tractor trailers can pass one another without conflict.
And the site driveway is not 150 feet away from the intersection. It's now 118, correct?
It was previously 51.9 feet, and then it was increased to 180.5, where 150 is required.
And when you say 150 is required, anything less than 150 is prohibited, right?
150 is the minimum required, correct?
Correct, yes.
And anything below that's prohibited,
It requires a design waiver.
but it's prohibited.
It's prohibited unless the board grants a waiver, correct?
Correct, yes. We will have our traffic engineer testify to the driveway geometry and the reason why the driveway is located besides the way it is.
I don't have further questions.
So, what the chair has said is, the next questions will be by any members of the public who want to ask questions of this witness as to things he's testified to or things that are in his March 31st report. What the board said last time was, public questions are limited to 3 minutes each. The answer doesn't count toward your 3 minutes. Unfortunately, I am the person who is asked to be the timer. And so you ask your questions. I pause it while he answers, and then I start it up again. So what happened to the other microphone? Aha, okay, so. Why don't we get a chair? Any members of the public who want to ask questions, why don't you form a line? You can form a line on this side of the room, okay? And let's get a public question chair, unless you want to stand up. You have your right to stand up, but let's put the microphone on the chair.
I'll hold it so it doesn't roll off. Okay.
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, this is questions, not comments, no statements, questions. We're gonna ask you for your name and address, and then you ask your questions. So you are the number one. You identify yourself.
Robert.
By the way, 6 inches away, parallel to the floor, that's the best. That's perpendicular, that's like that, but facing.
You guys can just spell the last name for me.
Mhm, oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, name again?
Robert Waters.
Can you spell your last name slowly?
Yes. WATROUS.
Okay, and your address?
320 Little York Battenberg Road,
I can't.
Milford.
We gotta go slow.
320 Little York Battenberg Road, Milford, New Jersey.
If I guess is registered, Mr. Grill, you can just please also ask if any of these members are a part of the group which is represented by council.
Yeah, that's true. Well, wait a minute. People who might donate to that group. Would have. Well,
Let's really address the ways.
one other thing. I want to take township residents' questions first, just because there is a case that says township residents should have a preference in asking questions. So I'm going to call up township residents with questions first, before we do out of town. And I'm not discriminating against anyone that doesn't live in the township, because I think it's the fairest way to do it. Now we're gonna start it over. Your number one. What's your name?
Robert Chaskos, CZASKOS, 108 Milford Road.
108 Milford Road.
BEAUFOR.
That's in Greenwich.
That's what it is.
Okay. So let me just get my timer ready. Hold on. Okay, fire away.
Just clarify that a member of the group represented by council representative.
Correct. Our trailer monitored by part, as I believe there can be no outside storage. Is that correct?
Well, it's correct that there's no outdoor storage allowed. The applicant and I have testified that trailers will be stored outside, but that there will be nothing that is stored inside those trailers. How the trailer parking is monitored, not outdoors, with that, I think it's gonna be put into the leases, to control that.
So are you saying all those parked trailers are empty?
Correct, yes, it is, again, outdoor storage is prohibited.
Number two, it appears most truck traffic will enter from and exit to the east. It would be very disruptive to westbound, non-commercial traffic. Do you agree?
I'm not gonna comment on traffic testimony, that is something for a traffic engineer to answer.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Next township resident.
Nice to meet you. I'm sorry about this.
Like
Patrick Miller.
like this.
Patrick Miller.
Patrick Miller, one of the few names I will not need to have spelled for me. Address.
Block 31, lot 13, next door, 500 Queensbury Road.
Can you don't have an address?
More time.
Block 31,
You're giving a block.
from my next door. 500 Queensbury Road.
500 Missouri. Okay, hold on, I'm gonna reset, go ahead. I have a question about the stormwater management. Stormwater management was submitted back in 2023. The applicant was submitted their application in April of 2024. The stormwater management was revised in November of 2023. Are they using the new ones? Are they using the old code?
The project, the applicant, we're using the latest one. Sorry, got it, understood. Yes, short answer is yes. I mentioned this earlier in answer to another question. The DEP came out with regulations regarding climate change and the factors into the precipitation models that are used. So the applicant has designed the project for what I'm referring to as the current rainfall events and the future rainfall events. The current rainfall events are 2020, the future rainfall events are 2100.
And that will be also under your floodplain, because you're still adopting the state 2011 site plans.
For the site plans.
Site plan is 21 for the flood range.
Got it. So there is a FEMA map. So not related to the 2023 regulations, but a little bit earlier than that. There's another set of regulations that came out that adjusted flood hazard area. So that has been factored into this as well. The flood hazard area line that's shown on our plans does add 3 feet to the FEMA delineation. That FEMA map is older. We add 3 feet to that. It's the new flood hazard area line. And again, as part of the process for the applicant, they will be submitting to the NJDEP to verify the flood line.
So that was done in this current application of the first one site plans.
That is on this. The original application already had it. I imagine that this application has it as well. I believe it's the last page of the set.
You believe it's the last page of what?
Of the plan set. It is page
Right, is that correct? Your chance?
C30.
C30 says the land use environmental constraints plan.
Correct. And it shows a red line, which is the delineated flood hazard area.
More questions? Yes, another one with overnight, running of the tractors. And also parking at the same time. Your parking thing is not taking into consideration parking of the client's, vehicles for delivery. It could be a straight truck, any type of, truck that they own, where are they gonna park? I'm saying it's
You're talking about the client's vehicles themselves.
client's vehicles, if they are the distributor for their own products, where their trucks are parked.
So that would be for the trailer spaces.
You have some trailer, what about their cabs and straight trucks?
It's gonna depend on the tenant, as we've talked about before, regarding the tractor trailers as well. Those spaces are just meant for larger industrial vehicles. So we call those trailer spaces, they can accommodate tractor trailers.
So you're saying the trailer spaces are sized to fit up to a trailer, but it can fit anything
Correct.
smaller than that.
Yes,
But the trucks, some trucks and tractors are together, he's saying trailers only. Straight trucks have the trailer attached to the truck.
Kendra's gonna be addressing that at some point, because she found the ordinance, but we have to break up the continuity of this. You guys keep on asking your questions, she will address what she found in the ordinance.
I have one with the blasting. I own a business that I have dogs there, and while they do blasting, I shut the business down. Dogs are affected by blasting.
Hold up. There's gonna be a condition. Right now, if the board were to approve this, I'm not saying you're going to, right now, there's no blast. The condition said no blast unless and until they bring an expert in to discuss it so the board can review it. So right now, my opinion, unless the applicant attorney differs from me, blasting is irrelevant right now. Do you agree?
It's currently not, we don't know that it's blast will be necessary just to be fine. So I don't think.
You're not proposing blasting at this point in time.
Okay. The last one is, the attorney over here has been, I apologize, Mike, has been cutting this as the ROM building.
That they would say again,
ROM building for the usage of the property
you mean the ROM zone.
zones. But the documentation, by your own report,
stuff still says warehouse. I believe you're referring to what was brought up last hearing with the geotechnical report that was done prior to the ordinance being changed that prohibited warehouses. So when it was done, it was the geotechnical report. It was informal, it was prepared for the applicant, it was prepared at the time when warehouses were permitted in the R1 zone. If you're no longer permitted in the R1 zone, you're not prepared for what was in the warehouse in the city. So the document was not submitted at 2040 when you supply the application. It was submitted, but it's probably was conducted prior to the change in the ordinance. Let me have, let me do this geotechnical just to change the word on the paper. So hold on a second.
Just in case this came up, I prepared a little thing for me to be able to talk about. So. Property is, this is my legal advice to the board, and this is the public can listen. The property is located in the RON Research Office and Manufacturing Zone, which is governed by ordinance section 16-18A. By the way, anything I say is correct, please correct. The applicant came to the Greenwich Township Land Use Board for an informal concept hearing on October 12, 2023, proposing a permitted light industrial use pursuant to then ordinance section 16-18A2C. The board at that time was concerned that it appeared to be a standalone warehouse, which appeared to be prohibited as warehouses were permitted, quote, only in association with approved research, office, and manufacturing uses, end quote, in accordance with ordinance section 16-18A2D. Light manufacturing was defined in ordinance 16-3.3 as, quote, fabrication, processing, or assembling of goods and materials, or the storage of bulk goods and materials where such activities or materials create no major hazard from fire or explosion, or produce no toxic or corrosive fumes, gas, smoke, odors, obnoxious dust or vapor, offensive noise or vibration, glare, flashes, or objectionable effluent, end quote. The applicant representatives stated that the proposed use would comply with that definition. The definition of light manufacturing was amended, however, by ordinance section 113-2023, which was adopted on October 19, 2023, to read as follows, quote, the making of goods. In other words, the definition of light manufacturing was changed at the board's suggestion to the governing body. So the new definition of light manufacturing, which became effective on October 19, 2023, and exists today, is, quote, the making of goods by hand or by machine through mechanical or chemical transformation of materials or substances into new products, including machining, casting, and molding, joining and shearing, and forming that are intended to be sold to customers upon completion. Items used in manufacturing may be raw materials or component parts of a larger product. All manufacturing occurs indoors. Light manufacturing does not include such activities or materials. I have something wrong.
There's a typo in the ordinance, so I knocked out create, that will present major hazard.
Yeah, that will create no major hazard from fire or explosion or produce no toxic or corrosive fumes, gas, smoke, odors, obnoxious dust or vapor, offensive noise or vibration, glare, flashes, or objectionable effluent, end quote. The applicant then returned to the Greenwich Township Land Use Board for a continuation of the formal concept review on November 9, 2023, and was informed at that time of the amended ordinance definition for light manufacturing. The applicant's representative stated that the proposed use would comply with that new definition. Additionally, ordinance section 113-2023 also amended ordinance section 16-18A2D to eliminate it in its entirety. So warehouses are not referenced in any section of the ordinance governing permitted use. Finally, ordinance section 113-2023 also amended the prohibited use provisions of ordinance section 16-18A5D to provide that, quote, warehouse or major distribution facility or large fulfillment distribution center or last minute fulfillment center and flex fields, end quote, are expressly prohibited in the ROM zone. So what he's testifying to is they had some document that was obviously prepared prior to that ordinance, and I assume that the applicant agrees that that document has to be amended to eliminate all reference to warehousing, correct?
I mean, a new geotechnical report is being prepared that will supersede this. I just want to state for the record that that geotechnical report, which was prepared conceptually, was submitted within our stormwater management report to help justify the preliminary design that we had prepared, because that report included some preliminary testing locations. That is why that report is there.
Okay, so hold on, let's get you back up here. You're a minute 40 seconds in. Okay.
This is just a question about security. We were talking about, when can we talk about security if this is approved with trucks not entering and, well, being there?
You can make your comments about that after all the witnesses are done, but you already heard that I asked them the question about the gate. They don't, I gather they don't think it's a great idea, but if the board imposed it as a condition, they said they would do it. So if you're asking them about any other security other than a gate, ask them. But it seems to me that the simplest way to make sure that nothing comes on the site that doesn't belong on the site and parked overnight is a gate. But if you have any other questions about security other than that, ask.
Oh, I want to make sure that was reiterated for security. We live there.
So real quick, just so you understand, there will be public comment, and that, at the end of the hearing, that will be your opportunity, and it's important. We want to hear that as a board, what those concerns are, we don't do briefs. So you'll have concerns that we may not even think of, so make sure that you're attending and letting us know those things and try to be.
Next township resident for questions.
How you doing? My name's Close.
No, it's set it down up like this. Got it like that.
Okay, great. My name's Dan, 275 still there.
Dan, we need.
I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, Dan Coke, KOCH,
Hey, go.
275 Still Valley Road.
Still Valley?
Still Valley, SPIN.
It's, so what it is, it's not really that, it's the echo, and the echo is louder.
So what do you want?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Well,
Everybody write your name and address down and hand it to her.
A little,
There you got it.
yes.
Okay, it's 275 Still Valley Road.
Whatever you're doing, that's great. Keep on doing it
Don't
that way.
talk loud, just don't talk loud.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I have those.
Go.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for your diligence in this and also the, these folks over here.
Still Valley Road, is that in Greenwich?
No, that's in Spring.
Say Greenwich, anyone else in Greenwich Township here that wants to ask questions? The Greenwich people are going first. You guys are going after. I announced that.
So I just walk away, so can't get this over with.
No, you're gonna get in the line with the non-Greenwich people.
Hello?
Hold on. Name, please.
Anthony Maris, MARIS,
Address.
215 Willowbrook Lane.
How do you spell that?
Will WILLER.
And are you a member of? Well, obviously, you're not a member of the, are you a member of the Skyland Preservation Alliance?
No.
Okay. We can reset, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Two couple of questions. There's one entrance, one exit. Is that right?
There's one singular drive that provides ingress and egress from the site.
And then in the event, God forbid, an industrial accident, there's only one place for fire trucks and get in and out, go one spot.
That's currently laid out, there's one ingress point to the site.
Okay, that's, and then there's, I work for a warehousing company and we have a lot of chemicals, cost and stuff, looking a site plan for industrial spill of any type. Should it, some kind of big spill happen, where that would flow to?
So this is not a warehouse, and, again, depends on the tenant and what they ultimately do. I imagine in accordance with any number of state regulations, there are still prevention plans and other mechanisms. in place.
If it were to go outside, what is the slope plan outside of the inside the slope, like the site plan itself?
I mean, all activities are proposed to be conducted indoors. No activities for the.
Listen, what do you have to do? If somehow you have these dock doors, the dock door is open, stuff spills out the dock door, gets onto the site. Will the spill prevention plan that's eventually submitted, if there's an approval after that, will it also address spill outside or on the inside? That's the question.
Yes,
Okay, and lastly, is it possible there would be food in there, some type of food manufacturer, could be under types of food, and what would be the site plan for vermin and that sort of thing?
again, I can't speak to the hypothetical tenant. I do believe that food processing is one of the uses that are permitted. And I imagine that any sort of regulation from the Board of Health, County Board of Health will be adhered to.
Thanks. Thank you. Any other Greenwich Township residents with questions? And again, I said, we're not discriminating against other township, but there's case law that says that township residents should go first. Then we'll go with Bloomsbury because they're right next door. Then we'll go with the Skyline Preservation Alliance because they're all over the Highlands Preservation and Planning area, I assume. So, name please.
Richard.
You turned it off.
Sounds perfect.
There it is. Awesome.
That's good. Richard?
Richard Clacker, KLOECKER,
Address.
109 Bradford Lane.
In Greenwich Township.
It is.
Are you a member of the Skyline Preservation Alliance?
No,
Go ahead.
so I actually had two questions. Give me one was pertaining to the pure generation data that you had posted on the website.
Again, trip generation, will be testified to by our traffic.
Okay, I promise, I think there is a point in something you can come to. If you just bear with me. So according to the study, it basically has an estimation.
Listen, is this gonna wind up with a question?
It absolutely is, I promise.
Let's see.
I promise. So according to this study that was done, it estimates the traffic.
Okay, hold up. Is the traffic question? Because again, this place is overly giving you access.
There's a significant amount of traffic that is generated. What provisions, if any, have you made to the roads that will accommodate the additional load of traffic, which is up to 1,000 vehicles a day?
Okay, so assuming that the traffic were up to 1,000 vehicles a day, because we don't know yet, traffic engineer hasn't testified it. What improvements would you have to make to the road, and then what improvements are you proposing to the road for this facility? I'm gonna break your question down to those two.
Thank you.
So I won't sound like breaking record, but the traffic engineer will provide a lot more information on this. But keep in mind, the roadway that the site fronts on is under NJDOT jurisdiction. As part of that, if they would like any improvements to the roadway made, the applicant will work with them to do that to accommodate the site. The traffic engineer will testify to the roadway design that has been prepared to include, left turn, into the site. So there are roadway improvements being proposed at that driveway location, and our traffic engineers can provide more testimony.
Let me ask you this. Do you have to apply for the NJDOT?
Correct, yes.
For any approvals?
Yes, we need an access permit from the DOT.
Does the township have any jurisdiction over approving any road improvements? I gotta tell you, my legal opinion is the township has no jurisdiction because it's a state road.
It is a state road under.
NJDOT has jurisdiction.
Fair. So my second question reverts back to what was talked about before as far as the runoff from the manufacturing site.
And one of the things that you stated was that the runoff goes to culverts to go into the river currently, and there will be retention basins. But you are putting in hard surfaces, and you're gonna have vehicles that are obviously gonna see petroleum products. What happens to the petroleum products? Where do they go? Are they being dumped into the river? Because currently what you have is soil that's flooding the culverts that you talked about.
And there's the question.
So the project that testified for this in the first hearing, the project is what is defined as a major development. So it has to meet the standards for quantity reduction, water quality, and groundwater recharge. The question that you're asking is in regards to water quality. So the requirement for a major development is what I'm referring to as 80% TSS removal. That is total TSS. Yes, I was gonna say, total suspended solids. So for the site, it's 80%. We are installing BMPs, stormwater facilities throughout the site. It's a collection.
You're installing a what?
Stormwater facilities throughout the site.
What conditions did you use?
BMPs, best management practices, also known as the stormwater facilities. They're being installed throughout the site. It's a collection of bioretention basins, porous pavement, infiltration basins. And under the regs from 2021 regarding green infrastructure, the site is green infrastructure compliant. What the applicant is proposing to do is to treat the runoff through vegetated media within these bioretention or porous pavement systems to provide that TSS.
And what is a median?
So for example, in a bioretention system, there is a vegetated media that is comprised of a certain spec of soil that the water will filtrate through before being discharged from that base. And then same thing for a porous pavement system, various porous materials, same function as a vegetated media. And again, these are standard practices that are used throughout the state, are approved by the DEP and certified by this level of water quality.
And are these things set forth in the NJDE, DEP, BNP manual?
Yes.
And maybe as a follow-up then, how is this monitored? And then, who is responsible if the standards are not met?
So as part of the original submission to the board, we submitted what I'm referring to as the O&M manual, which stands for Stormwater Operations and Maintenance Manual, which outlines the responsibility and maintenance of these facilities. Currently, that lists a responsible party. That party right now is currently the applicant. Should the property that would be sold or transferred, that O&M manual is recorded with the property deed and carries with the property. So that whoever owns the site, whether now in the future is responsible for that stormwater management, they prepare inspection reports and logs, which are then submitted to the township engineer as part of their SWIFT reporting to the state.
Maybe you can try it anytime.
You have 1 minute, 40 seconds.
Perfect, I have one question. So throughout the meeting, there's been a lot of discussion. You've answered questions. Many times you've answered questions saying that you can't commit to how certain things are going to be built or the property is going to be utilized if you don't have tenants. My question to you is this: how can you assure the board or anybody in this room that you're going to abide by the answers that you and the specifications that are spelled out by the township when you can't even tell us who the tenants are?
So as Mr. Gill has elaborated on, the applicant is proposing a light industrial manufacturing use that could be a number of tenants. I agree with you, but they all generally have the same type of operations that are permitted under the very loud zoning code. So the applicant is proposing those tenants, as previously testified to, and I think even brought up today. When those tenants are determined, they're going to come back before this board to outline the regulations in front of the board so that they can make a determination whether or not they meet that zoning definition.
Okay. Next township resident question.
Hi, Adrian Bennett, A.N.
Hold on.
Adrian.
Adria, IBRIA. Connect, KNECHD,
Address,
516 Route 173, and that is under construction.
okay, and are you a member of the Skylands?
I gave him $5 for a sign, is there no?
Are you, okay, go ahead.
You've stated a number of times that you, or the client does not intend to put up a gate to block off access after hours. And then you feel that it's not going to be an issue because they don't have scheduled deliveries after hours. Tractor trailers do come up 173 after hours. How are you going to keep them from parking on the side of the road? Tractor trailers will come up and sit outside Kiva, which is where I am, and they'll sit there for 2 and 3 hours with their, with the engines going. How do you propose to keep them from doing that outside the facility?
So I think that was maybe multiple parts. The first part about the gate, we covered, stating that we're going to talk about the gate. I believe it's made a condition by the board, the applicant will install that gate. In terms of vehicle staging on the outside, again, I am not the traffic engineer. I can't speak to the truck traffic. There are certainly ways that building management tenants can control the way that vehicles arrive at the site and handle that. That includes having something there to open the gate during normal hours of operations, to make sure that the trucks are going in and not staging on the road.
And listen, I'm not answering this question, but a practical suggestion. If you see that now even, and it's not allowed, call the Greenwich Township
I do.
Police Department.
I do, I've done it several times.
Not to. Okay,
We could add it as a stipulation, stipulate a condition of approval, and we would put it in our leases, tenant leases that no trucks are allowed to park on the side of the road outside of operation hours.
Which one way, and I don't know who needs to be worked with, to put up a sign that says no overnight parking
On where?
on 173.
We don't have jurisdiction to use it.
right, but would you be willing to propose it to the MJDOT?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're gonna break this, could you write these down? Okay,
That was it.
thank you.
That was
Oh, that was it, okay. Next, Greenwich Township residents question.
Okay, so we're gonna stop.
We're stopping at 10 o'clock. You want to take?
I know,
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, the chair has announced that under the board rules, board knocks off at 10, the board is gonna plan on knocking off at 10, it's now 9:48. And on. You are number 6. Your name, please.
Andrew. Tax, TANACS,
Address.
10 Chrisman Drive, Greenwich.
Greenwich. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Also, are you a member of the?
So, I noticed that the site is located within a wellhead protection area. And given the, just the, I guess everyone's education, well,
Stop. Microphone up, like this. Not like this, like this. No. Parallel to the ground, that's it. That's number 1. Number 2. Are you aware that the site is located in a wellhead protection area? Yes or no?
are you aware that the site's located within a wellhead protection area?
Oh, that's no.
Yeah, okay.
So because he's not aware, he's not gonna be able to answer any questions about the wellhead.
Protection. Okay,
It's giving you a heads up.
okay, that's kind of where I was going.
I understand, that's why he's giving you the heads up.
There will be comment also, so
Right.
we have public comment, bring that up.
Correct.
Okay, for future.
Yeah.
Future meetings.
Correct. So I want to. Yeah.
All right, well, everybody understands, and I know people are starting to leave. Unfortunately, this is not the only piece of business our board has to hear. We have another application, which we will be hearing next month. What we're going to be doing is starting our meeting at 7:30 with a new application. We're gonna close that off firmly at 9 p.m. so we can get back into this hearing. And we can go to 10:30 p.m. Here's the kicker, and these things happen sometimes, if the applicant for the new application doesn't show up, we will be getting right into this piece of business. So you guys get to join us to see what we do, but I would suggest we come at 7:30. If we can get that done quicker, we can, but we will do a hard cut of that new application at 9 p.m. so we can continue business here. Mr. Strong will certainly have to come back, because we're not going to get to all the questions today. And then our board members are going to have questions for Mr. Strong as well. So we have at least one more hearing with just Mr. Strong. And, you know, unfortunately, there's other people need decks and other applications in Greenwich, and we have to hear those applications as well, so we can't just push them off for 6 months.
How much did that ever?
Okay, just so you understand.
Public hearing. You're not ready. It's a public hearing, and you folks, you are not running out the clock on purpose.
Running out.
What do you hold the experts?
What?
And you're shutting people down. So that's what you do. Wake up. Wake up.
I hope everyone in the audience realizes that the board is trying to hear all the testimony that the applicant is entitled to give the board and all the questions that everyone has. I hope everyone realizes that we haven't shut down anyone from asking any questions. What we have shut down is a rude person like that who wants to start making comments and yelling. Because what the chairman was also going to say is, the process is, everything is witness by witness. The witness testifies, two attorneys cross-examine the witness, the public asks questions of the witness, the board members ask questions of the witness, then they go to the next witness. They've already said, right, they're going to bring a traffic expert. I predict they're going to bring a geotechnical expert, and they're going to have a planning expert, and they're going to have an architectural expert. So we got 4 more witnesses to go. Whether we like it or not, or whether people like it or not, this hearing is going to be multiple months of hearing. Now, this board has done that in the past. That's part of their job. Okay, and so no one's gonna be cut off. So we still have 7 minutes. So at the very end, after the last witness testifies, and by the way, the 2 attorneys, on behalf of their clients, they might bring experts. I have a feeling that each of them is at minimum gonna have a planning expert. Maybe they'll also have engineering experts. They're gonna testify and they're gonna be questioned. When all the witnesses are done, all the witnesses are questioned, then the board opens up for public sworn testimony. Then anyone in the audience wants to make statements, they'll have the same 3 minutes, but then I'll swear you in and you'll ask questions. Now, we're not gonna have members of the public questioning members of the public, but the applicant's attorney and the board members will have the right to question you. So the information you want to give, because you have asked him, is he aware this is in a wellhead protection area? And he said he's not aware of it. If you want to bring that to the board's attention, you're just gonna have to hang out for a while, in the hearing, but you'll finally get to do that.
Okay, that would happen.
Months from now. This being honest.
When we rest our case, and any attorneys who want to present their own case, rest their case, they will then call the members of the public. At that point in time, we don't know what month that will be, and hopefully it'll be next month or the month after. Then it'll be an opportunity for the public to give statements regarding this application, sworn statements.
And trust me on this, no one on this board is trying to drag or draw this thing out. The board would love to have this thing, in sooner than later. So that's just a ridiculous thing to say, that the board is trying to drag this thing out. We are just trying to have a very organized, efficient, and calm hearing on this thing, knowing that there's a lot of people out there that are opposed to the application, which is their right to be opposed to it. That's what the board wants to hear from everybody, that's all. 5 minutes left. Who's the next Greenwich Township resident? Ask question.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
I'm good in yourself. Can you guys hear me without this?
I can. We can, they can. Go ahead.
MYRA, Bush, BUSH, 173, Route 1,
Hold on. Start with the first name and spell it.
MYRA.
Myra
Bush,
Bush.
BUSH,
173.
Route 173, 604, 173, sorry. 604, State Route
173 in Greenwich.
in Greenwich, right next to Bloomsbury Bridge.
You are a member of the Skyline Preservation.
I'm not. So my question is, living right next to the Bloomsbury Bridge, we constantly have accidents. What are you guys gonna have with that? With the accidents that we're having on 173, now that we're having this right?
So again, we have a traffic expert who will testify to the traffic generated by the site and its impact on the roadway network.
And I want to get that on the books.
Yep.
Next question. How many light fixtures are you mounting on 173 5 the building?
Light
Lights.
You're asking for building mounted lights on the building facing the road. Give me a moment and I will follow our lighting. There are 11 building mounted fixtures, that goes along that building frontage.
11 on the front.
Yes,
All right. How many are in the parking area to the building?
I am counting 21.
Another question.
Hold on. These lights are- All parking lot, what's the parking lot facing one?
That's the same area in front of the building. including mine. So again, as noted and I testified before, there's gonna be no lights spillover onto the right way or adjacent neighboring properties. We are meeting the light level as closely as possible to what's required by code, as well as for safety circulating the site. These are dark sky compliant fixtures, as I testified to before previously. They are full cutoff fixtures, they don't shine light into the air.
They don't shine like into the air.
Yes, they only shine, yeah.
Okay, sure. So I'm looking at your diagram that you have here. The truck that's coming into the parking lot, is it one way around? Are there?
It's two-way circulation, so once they enter the driveway, they can make a left turn to circulate around the site.
Okay, next question, actually, looking at this diagram. So the trucks and cars are coming into one parking lot, one entrance. Which is also going to back up the trucks, cars coming and going. How are you gonna manage that?
We have a traffic expert who will testify to the hearing at the time. No, there may be some laughter from the crowd, but again, I cannot, we have a traffic expert who will talk about everything related to the traffic and vehicle circulation around the site.
How much time do I?
You're in 53 seconds now.
Next question. How many light fixtures are on the drive between 173 and the building?
I believe you already asked.
Now, so you have to have lights on the parking lot. If you included the 21, it also include the driveway.
Yes, that includes those.
Now, you're taking that building, the house that's there down there,
Correct,
and you're putting trees in front of that spot.
correct.
Why wouldn't you move the driveway further down? Because coming off of Bloomsbury Road number 173, you're already doing this. You know what I mean? Not to look at it.
I understand it. So again, twofold is, I'm gonna try and answer this as best as I can. Part of the reason it's traffic related and my traffic experts, I spoke about it at the first hearing, but the driveway location is based on two factors. One of which is traffic based and the second of which is environmental. There is a 300-foot riparian zone that the DOT regulates. There is no new disturbance allowed within the inner 150-foot riparian zone, and that would cover that location. So a driveway could not be proposed there under DEP regulations, right?
Talk about traffic, talk about danger. I'd like for you all to take a moment at 4:30 in the afternoon, sit over there and try to come off that road. Right now, or 78 of that road. Please try it. See what we go through daily. It's not safe. It's not safe at all.
It's now 10 p.m. So we'll make an announcement that the hearing in this matter is going to be continued to the next board meeting, which is
I believe.
May 8th. Again, at the hearing, the meeting's going to start at 7:30. Everyone should be here at 7:30, just in case. The first application that's here that doesn't show up, if that first application is here, don't be shocked, maybe get to 9 o'clock, and the board's going to extend a half hour, and you go to 10:30. There's no need for further notice, and, I don't know where we are with the extension of time, but, so you have this. Yeah, the next year, very least. Under the NL 12, because these revised plan, sensitive plan, be treated as new, so the time to start from March 31. April 1, if you have variances. April 1. Do you agree? Yeah. I will not. Right, we're gonna take the 20 days to make it one, whatever that is, okay? Okay, great. All right, motion to repair? Well, real quick. I don't believe we're gonna have a call for the next time. But I don't want to get caught in this favor, we're gonna have something like this sufficient. Meeting's still going on, this is important stuff. At this point, we have so much stuff to do, there's no need to plan the vision before we make here, my estimation. Yeah, we agree with that. We don't want to be more plan the vision for me, but we do want that stormwater stuff. When's the stormwater stuff gonna be? Because the stormwater stuff, you cannot put price in this condition. We are, right? Stormwater stuff has to be submitted 1 day.
Not for May.
No, correct. Oh, yeah.
Well, we have it right,
Yeah,
we don't have it,
right.
but we don't expect it to happen. It'll be normal to do it.
Put it this way. If you want to discuss storm water, instead of being in June, and you're gonna have to have it submitted 21 days before the June date.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, motion to adjourn from the board.
Motion, Hill.
Gary, second,
Second, motion to adjourn.
Jason, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye. And that is 10:03.
I'm good for another 30 minutes.